Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 572 on Tuesday, the 2nd of April, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week we'll be lamenting the fact that the motor industry appears to have gone on its hollybobs. In new car news, we make up for the lack of news. And in points of interest, we get all touchy-feely.
Seriously.
So I know I deliberately said hollybobs just to annoy so many people.
Yes, I know. Well, it's worked with at least one, so There's a good start. Well done.
Thank you. We start with the follow-up that LUCID has raised $1 billion from the Saudi Sovereign Fund. That's Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, or PIF. And that has managed to, on the news of this coming out last week, their shares rose 8%, which doesn't seem a lot considering that they're going to be fine now for a while.
Yes, but it's much better compared to some other EV companies whose shares are dropping by significantly more than that.
Yes, non-existent, I think, now in some cases. Lucid Company has stated that they have weaker than expected demand, and they're going to use the proceedings for corporate purposes and capital expenditure, among other things. It's quoted in this Reuters article. Mm-hmm. The other element is that they reckon that they will make 9,000 units in 2024 compared to 8,428 in 2023. But good news for one of the EV companies, yes, seemingly quite stable and has the money to keep going.
Yeah, their cars are very big and very luxurious. Mm. It is a tricky one there for them to be able to get any kind of volume.
Yeah, it's not a volume thing, is it? Really?
It is absolutely not a volume thing. Beautifully finished, nice looking cars. Mm. Next up is Canoe, not to be mistaken for Kazoo or a Saudi Arabian travel agency. They are allegedly a US electric car manufacturer.
But I don't think it's car. It's light commercial vehicle.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I read the first line of the Electrive article to get myself warmed up there, and it uses the word car, but it's not so much. Yeah, it's vans, light commercial vehicle and that kind of stuff, as you say. They have taken over, I assume bought, significant parts of the production equipment from Arrival, who of course are now solvent. They have been taken from the UK in 20 containers and shipped by sea to Canoe's production facilities in Oklahoma. So I imagine it wasn't all by sea if it involved getting to Oklahoma.
Yeah, it does say in this article that in a quote from Canoe that they state that they acquired at a discount of over 80% of the appraised value.
Oh, wow.
They've snapped a bargain.
It's a bit of a fire sale.
Yeah.
Electrive here is saying that it's stuff like robots, control units, PLC controls, general sort of assembly plant stuff, which it has obviously barely used and snapped up for a bit of a song. Canoe seems to have loads of orders. Whether or not they've turned those into actual physical vehicles is a different matter. They were meant to have delivered a whole 6 units of its Lifestyle Delivery Vehicle 190 by the end of the first quarter to the US Postal Service. Don't know if they have or not. There's the Lifestyle Delivery Vehicle is the van style, and there's also is the Lifestyle Vehicle, which is very difficult to say before 8 o'clock in the morning, which is a sort of SUV minivan, Volkswagen ID Buzz type idea job.
Yep. They're very good at getting coverage, and they're very good at drumming up investment stroke subsidies from government and states.
But I've not really seen any things for a while. Not for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes, I will take us into the very short and brief new news. And this is that JLR have appointed dedicated UK directors for its House of Brands. Someone is now going to be in charge of Jaguar, Range Rover, Defender and Discovery. So we'll start with Alan Nicholson, who was the head of UK product marketing for JLR in the UK, and he is going to be the brand director for Range Rover. We also have Leonie Raystrict, who is going to lead up the Defender and Discovery brand, and she joins from Stellantis, where she was the International Brand Strategy Director for Peugeot. And she also was a winner in the Autocar Great Women Awards last year. And the third director is going to be Santino Pietrasanti, who was the director of strategic partnerships at JLR, and he is going to head up Jaguar. I do encourage you to click the link in the show notes just to see how the JLR brand dress code is going.
It's a bit weird. It's a bit like the Solihull Mormons.
Yes, it's quite freaky, actually.
You're not sure if they're sort of aliens that have landed or they're about to introduce you to the word of our Lord. It's a little strange. Office jobs where you end up with a uniform are very weird.
Yes.
He says sitting here in shorts and a t-shirt.
And we're thankful for that much.
Oh, goodness, yes. Having done it.
Yes.
Having done office job with bad uniform, I can sympathise, but it does, yes, it's fine in a one-on-one, I guess.
Yeah, because I get it it in the retail element where they're trying to create this consistent thing, but when the directors are wearing it... But this is a bit like Nissan, for example. So Nissan up in Sunderland, everyone wears a polo shirt. Right. Everyone
wears the same grey trousers. The only way you can tell how senior someone is by their shoes. You have to it's the only thing. Which, trying to work out how senior people are in a corridor is how I literally bumped into Andy Palmer. In the Sunderland factory once, yes. And then you really feel like you stick out if you're not in said uniform. So. Anyway, moving on, shall we?
Yes.
It's nice to see that they're getting the important stuff right.
Yes. Focus on all the low-hanging fruit, chaps.
Next up, the Financial Conduct Authority is concerned over insurers' valuations of written-off or stolen vehicles. Sheldon Mills, the Executive Director of Consumers and Competition at the FCA, said that having your vehicle written off or stolen can be intensely stressful. We expect firms to offer the right support to help their customers. We expect all motor insurers to take note of our findings, and we are engaging directly with those who have issues that need to be addressed. And this is because insurance companies have been consistently coming back with ludicrously low bids and offers on the values of vehicles that have been stolen or written off or whatever.
Yep.
Generally in ways that aren't the owner's fault. Interesting thing as we were going through this is there was a story we missed from the start of February about the FCA being concerned about gap insurance. And a number of insurers have agreed to stop selling gap insurance. So gap insurance obviously is the insurance that you buy for a year or for 2 years or however long. That means that if something happens to your car, if it gets written off, if it gets stolen, then you've paid a little extra upfront to then be sure that you'll get the amount that you paid for the vehicle back at a minimum. And that was, I don't know, I always felt that was a bit of a swizz, to be honest. Says man who is also taking it out when buying new cars.
Well, according to this article, it appears that because it says that only 6% of amount customers pay in premiums for gap insurance is paid out in claims, apparently.
It's very, very low take-up in that. It is an absolute cash cow. And once again, insurance companies have maybe not acting in the best interests of their customers.
What, taking from the top and the bottom, Alan?
Yeah. You may very well say I couldn't possibly comment, but yes. As always, yes.
Right, I am going to move us on, though. And there are increasingly loud voices, this time coming from the Chartered Trading Standards Institute, which are asking for the UK government to introduce mandatory licensing of motor retailers, and that is to include repair facilities as well. What has triggered this is a worrying volume of complaints, especially around used cars and vehicle repairs, and they want to bring in a licensing scheme that will have a minimum industry standard as well as accreditation will be required for you to be able to sell cars. When you look at, say, what's the company that does the Saturday Selector? Palmdale, and they share some of the horror stories they, as professionals, come across when dealing with what you would hope would be reputable, big, large companies.
Dealer groups.
Yeah. And you see the shocking state of whatever they're provided or the the penny pinching in areas that you raise an eyebrow at, then you can see why, when it gets down to, say, you're looking for something about $5,000 in a backstreet used dealer lot, some more protection would be welcome.
Agreed. But then the flip side of that is that there you'll then end up with more of that, the style of trader you're talking about, Andrew, posing as
doing the private
a single
stuff.
person doing the private stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, at which point they're not covered by any consumer law. Well, not any consumer laws, but they're not covered by the same level of consumer laws that they are even at the moment.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a tricky tightrope to walk, because you know that the scuzzy end is just going to go off and try and become more scuzzy. I'm very lucky in this. The garage I use keeps winning awards at the Good Garage Awards and all these kinds of things. I've been spoiled rotten for a long time without having to go off and try and find places.
Yeah.
And even here, I've been lucky that people have recommended blooming good garages to me.
But it's an interesting one, because this is becoming louder, because there was some of this being shouted about last year as well. I can see this as another bandwagon, but not in that sort of sense. But you know what I mean? Another campaign to push for something to try and give people more confidence. Especially
as prices of cars of used vehicles and stuff are also going up. Then there is scope for more profit with very minimum additional work by some of the rogue traders out there to make a bit more money by just, I don't know, I was going to say polishing but you know what I'm trying to say. I think the economic times mean it's
even more
attractive
focus,
for people. Yeah.
But do you want to take us on to an interesting white paper that we stumbled across?
Yes, this is from Transport Extra. As always, linkies in the show notes to all of our stories. But this one is talking about the barriers stopping consumers from switching to EVs. And it's a report by Francesca Barrick and Matt Smith. And it's a fairly chunky read, and then it does link to the full white paper from Atkins Realis, which is for whom Francesca and Matt work for. Yeah,
just before we go any further, this is not a hatchet job on why people don't buy EVs. It's not, something done by one of the mainstream media looking for clicks or anything like this. This is in conjunction with Transport for the North, which had a conference last week looking at all these elements to transport in the North, funnily enough. This is a legit one that is worth considering seriously.
It is. It's definitely worth a read of your time. Absolutely not a Telegraph, Daily Mail, Times, hatchet, what the heck were they doing job.
Yeah. There's ones that are never written by the transport correspondent.
Yes. Yeah, we all know the ones. Yes, the columnist has driven it. There's a very nice PowerPoint slide at the top. I would have trouble believing that it isn't. Definitely wasn't put together by a graphic designer anyway. Called Barriers to EV Adoption, and it talks about the different sort of 5 things of consumer confidence, some issues around infrastructure, some around cost as well. And as well as that, it goes on, and it doesn't poke at anything in particular. It just says, look, there's these, and it's generally a combination of these. There was quite an interesting thing as part of the article further down, which it comments that there were also concerns among older people in our focus groups about their ability to obtain financing to purchase an EV, which is very true. Whenever people are older, they don't necessarily have an income above pension, then it can become difficult to get finance.
Yep.
Especially as things become more expensive, then that becomes a challenge too. But it's a very interesting read. I haven't read the full white paper, but I might do. It's at that level, but it's an interesting, balanced, factual article as opposed to I don't feel because...
No, they actually spoke to members of the public and asked them specific questions to get the responses to this.
Yes.
They're not just making up something because they've read 2 or 3 articles or skim read 2 or 3 articles and just pulled together what's commonly said. They have gone and investigated and taken on board the feedback they've been given.
Pulled together 2 or 3 articles and then gone and tried to charge at a busy motorway charging station on a bank holiday. Well worth a read there. transportextra.com for that. Linky, of course, in the show notes.
Yep. To round out the new news, there is a consultation which has just opened from the UK government, from the Department of Transport, which is all about allowing hydrogen-powered tractors, diggers and forklifts to be used on the roads in Great Britain. And we were talking about this beforehand because I didn't realise they weren't. And we surmise, we haven't had a chance to fully explore this, but we surmise that it's down to technical language in the existing regulations and the type approvals.
Yeah, because existing regulations already allow for LPG both internally and also the cylinders, the gas cylinders used on LPG forklifts, which are different because they pick up liquid. Anyway, don't go down there, Alan. But they run they take the LPG as a liquid as opposed to the gas that your gas fire does, which is why they're different cylinders.
I saw some fantastic hot takes on this from people who, clearly know nothing about farming, because there was a certain sector of evangelists who leapt up and down and went, well, hydrogen's ridiculous on a farm. You don't need that. You just have electric tractors. And I just thought, you know nothing about how farms work, operate, or how a tractor is used, or anything like this, have you? No.
Look, it's all about the Cowey wowies and the sheepy weepies.
Yes.
And there should be far more wildflowers.
Yes.
I'm sorry. please can I have the job of Environment Minister now, please?
Yes. This is interesting, and if you can get this to work, because it does seem like it is a possible use for hydrogen. Okay, as ever, caveats. No, we don't have enough green produced yet. Yes, it is still burning something off. However, I think we can all agree it is still better than a smoky diesel chugging away.
Congratulations, you've won the Robert Llewellyn Award for derogatory diesel language where it wasn't necessary. I shall hereby hand you a Tesla. The thing about hydrogen in these kind of situations is it makes a lot of sense. So large farms, for example, even small farms normally have their own diesel tank. A hydrogen tank can quite easily replace that because the distribution equipment at that point is self-contained, containerized. Buy it, plunk it down, or lease it probably from a gas supplier who can then fill it up. That works really well. And the containerized, especially for big construction sites and stuff, again, very easy to come along, drop it at the start of the work, lift it away at the end. Ta-da, you're done. All you need really is an electricity supply and tankers every now and again to fill it up.
Yeah.
Our guess around the sort of homologation and stuff was really to do, I guess, with the pressure tanks and things, to do with containing those. I imagine it's less to do with the equipment potentially floating away. Sorry, I just had this mental image.
You had a go at me about using unnecessary diesel language. Thanks very much.
I should just
well
work that
done
one in
for a hydrogen stereotype that's not applicable.
I remember that we're mostly talking about combusting the hydrogen as opposed to fuel cells.
Yeah.
Very different from many of the hydrogen cars that we've seen on the road. So again, a time to not be drawing those parallels, which are so easy to do, and people seem to take great delight in it. So this is a different application of hydrogen.
Yep.
There endeth the lesson.
Sorry, everyone, but there is just not much new news. Although, like I said in the intro, wait for new car news. That's different.
Yes, we'll try and zip through that with relative zippiness. But before that, it's Guilt Minute, a quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel that the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. And I notice, thank you, patrons who are changing and upping their monthly amount. That's much appreciated. Thank you very much. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we do completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from our podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all of that, and some of you do so, thank you very much. Then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who does. Very much appreciated. Don't forget the YouTubes.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say, don't forget to like and subscribe. But subscribe, that would be very nice. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, new car news, and I'm going to start with the Ford Explorer. Now, we may have mentioned this last year because it was going to be launched, and then it wasn't launched because there was an issue with the batteries that were going to be used. They were not going to comply with the UN regulation 100.3.
Oh, yes, I know it so well.
which is to do with the certification of EV safety. That was quite a shock. Well, sorry, God.
Sorry.
Oh, it wasn't even intentional.
The coffee's kicked in, folks. Yes.
It's so bad. I'm sorry, everyone. What I was surprised at, that Volkswagen didn't stop the production of their cars, and this was based on a Volkswagen platform.
Yes, it's a curious one as to whether that was oversight. Was it the Volkswagen end or the Ford end?
Yeah.
In this, and nobody's pointing any fingers, by the way, other than, two amateur journalists sitting in front of microphones, really. Yeah.
Asking a question. But it's going to start from a smidgen under the posh car tax of £40,000 with a maximum range of up to 374 miles, depending on the specification. I think it's a pretty good looking SUV, quite clean. I'm not keen on where they put the interior touchscreens, but we'll get to touchscreens later in the show anyway. But they're going to have a variety of batteries ranging from the 77 kilowatt hour battery. They're going to have a 79 one, which is using the same platform or powertrain as the Volkswagen GTX, the sporty EVs that Volkswagen are going to be doing.
Everybody else is doing it. There's no...
Yeah, I know. There's going to be charging speeds maximum charging speed, between 135 kilowatt and 185, which will give, and I love that Autocar have put this, I'm going to quote here, giving a theoretical 10 to 80% top-up time of just 26 minutes. Brilliant. That's what we have to say now, because we normally say environmental conditions allowing.
Yeah, theoretical. I hear. Well, it's shorter. Yes.
Yes, I like that.
Which I think is...
It's fair. You have to say
it's
it.
all you can say.
You've got to say it. Because we've seen the Advertising Standards Agency take car makers to task because they've stipulated a thing and people have gone, well, that's only if you can get this particular charger and the sun is shining and you've preheated your engine. It's just going, well, okay, so thanks the adenoids.
Bad when we're not counted amongst the adenoids, isn't it?
Not this time. What they've also said is that they are going to pull back on their two Volkswagen platformed vehicles that are going to come out to be less than 600,000 units because there has been changes in the market conditions, i.e. people are not buying new cars as much as they were.
And they're not buying as many EVs as were originally
certainly
forecast.
Not EVs, because depending on which articles you read, it's like none are selling or they're all selling. But I'm sure with the price point and everything and the size that it is at, it's going to do well.
It seems, yes. And it's been designed for the European market, which the Mach-E hasn't been or wasn't. I think it looks good. I like the looks of the everyday, is it a police car, isn't it a police car, Ford Explorer anyway, that's sold over here.
But also, they make a big thing about saying that they have gone for their American... The Americanness of it is going to be in all their cars from the future. So we're not going to have, this is clearly a European Fiesta type thing anymore. They're all going to celebrate the Americanism of the company, which makes me a little bit worried depending on how that actually translates to reality. But in this, if this is what they're saying Americanism is, then I don't see a problem.
There are some nice bits of American. I mean, as long as it comes with somewhere to hold my Duncan, then we're good. There was one thing I noticed somebody recently, whilst we're talking about Ford and Americanisms, was talking about how Ford had a more coherent range and naming policy over here. I can't remember who it was, so I'm sorry if I'm not crediting you. Compared to Europe, where everything was just a bit scattergun. And it was kind of funny because I thought, I think I made a point a little bit like that a couple of months ago. But I think it was actually really quite a good point in that there is... If you look at it at the moment, there is little coherency in the European Ford range, and I think that maybe if they're trying to bring in that Americanness as a theme, that might help with the consistency across all the models. And I say that despite the fact that some vehicles are the same, essentially the same here as they are in Europe. So stuff like the Cougar is the Escape.
Okay.
And that kind of stuff. Curious to see if model naming starts to align and that kind of thing.
Anyway, do you want to take us onto a car that I have to make very clear because I selected the order, so it would be unfair? This is not part of the drinking game, but Alan.
Toyota have released pictures, information, and pricing for the revised facelifted GR Yaris. The price has jumped a bit. In fact, it's jumped by about £12,000. Toyota have said that this is reflecting its space in the marketplace and representative of the car's positioning, and as well as that, the stuff such as inflation and more new tech and stuff that's in it.
Yeah, I saw somebody do the inflation calculation, and it was only £2,000 off the difference. It was less. It was like 42,000 with inflation. So it's obviously additional other stuff on tech and everything.
Yeah, it was an absolute steal beforehand. It also differentiates it and makes it a bit less Yaris-y inside, which bizarrely was one of the things that people complained about. So now it looks more like an older Corolla, which people are complaining about. But that's entirely down to them. I don't know that I have an opinion one way or the other. I quite liked how it used to be. But then how it is now, I might want it sort of suede flocked or something, just to really add to the full ambiance in there.
I'm not convinced by the dashboard design now, I have to say.
Yeah, I don't know if ultimately it makes it easier for them to homologate the rally cars.
Maybe.
That might be part of it. Or they did it just for the lols.
Yes.
44,250 for the base. There are two different special editions called the Sebastian Ogier edition and the Cali Rovanpera edition. They come in at around £60,000.
Mm-hmm.
The 1.6 litre triple is putting out just under 20 horsepower more, with a small sludge of torques added in as well. You will also be able to get it with the option of an 8-speed auto alongside the 6-speed manual. Yeah, okay. There's other bits and pieces that have been tweaked and twiddled as well around the suspension, but you'd have to be far more of a tread shuffle aficionado than I, probably, to be able to tell the difference. The £60,000 ones, which are coming in limited numbers, but this Autocar article doesn't say what the limits are. Ogier Edition gets a Morizo mode, which improves traction and cornering, and Seb mode, which diverts more power to the rear wheels to boost handling at higher speeds. The Cali Rovanpera Edition gets a Donut mode, which enables better drifting and donut spins, and Cali mode, which makes full use of an extra rear differential.
I expect Toyota has not announced numbers because they must be keeping an eye on the annual fleet numbers and go, actually, we can't sell any more internal combustion engines, so let's hold back.
That's what they've been doing with other vehicles.
But you've got to be on the waiting list or a current owner of a GR Yaris to be put into the, what did they call it?
It's a ballot.
Ballot, yes.
In May, there'll be a ballot and a chance to secure an allocation.
I imagine it will still be a fantastically quick way in which you could lose your license, as the old one could be.
I declared the other week, by the way, that the GR Roller was officially common because I'd seen three within a week. You remember the GR Yaris is mostly Corolla underneath, to be honest. It's Yaris in name only. It used to be Yaris in name and dashboard only, but the dashboard's no longer the case. Because it's Corolla subframes, both ends and all that kind of thing. The GR Corolla, which is sold over here, is essentially a 5-door Corolla hatchback with the same guts slotted in, which not wonderfully difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think, because the challenge is that the GR Yaris is too good on road, because it's developed as a rally car, it just absorbs everything. And it's flipping quick, but it just absorbs everything. I think the GR Corolla, being developed more as a road car based on this, is probably a more interesting drive on the road. But they're not sold together in the same market, so it's almost impossible to have a comparison. Someone, I'm sure, will tell me I'm wrong. Please do, tell me one way or the other. But that's my theory, is that actually, of the two, I might personally prefer the GR Corolla.
Mm-hmm. And it would allow passengers. This is your newfound...
Yeah, that's the downside.
Your newfound enjoyment of taking people in the car with you.
I don't think it's a newfound enjoyment.
Right, I am going to move us on. And another revamp, and one that seems to have gone on for decades, and this is the Mercedes G-Class, has been revamped, bringing hybrid power and touchscreens to the G-Wagon for the first time. Ooh. I've got a soft spot for the G-Wagon, I have to say, because that was the first car I drove after I passed my test, was my mum's G-Wagon.
At least you weren't likely to be going very fast.
No, not fast at all.
Although mass times acceleration means you could do just as much damage. I've always liked the G-Class. My feeling with the G-Class is the lower the spec, the better, though.
Yes, I happen to encounter quite a few of the AMG editions that seem to be only driven by morons locally, which is a shame. But they've got inside this new, the refreshed one, there's the typical screens from Mercedes-Benz, as it's got the latest infotainment system. There's also keyless entry. It's going to have a 3-litre straight-six diesel.
Nobody cares about this, Andrew. The only thing that people care about is that it has the front-facing camera mounted low in the front bumper, so it has a new transparent bonnet view.
Well, I was thinking about this.
And more importantly, it means that that camera has its small auto-deploying washer jet to keep it clean. That's all you need to know about the new G-Class.
But interestingly, on the camera front, is that the way that the car industry gets around larger and larger vehicles? With people saying, you know, we've all seen the pictures, let's put a child right up against the bumper of a giant vehicle that they would never be anywhere near anyway, just to demonstrate, or even grown adults if it comes to some of the American mega pickups. But is that a way around it? Rather than go, let's stop building these huge things, is it a case of let's throw more tech to try and fix a problem?
I'm not prepared to enter into this discussion at all.
Okay.
The reason I don't use one of the newer social media platforms is because I pointed out the ludicrousness of that particular test at one point, and that the people were doing it to modified vehicles, not standard ride height or anything like that. And it just the reaction to that was just not good. And it was just like, can't be bothered if you people to that kind of person. Yes, I suppose they can, because it's difficult to mount a mirror on the front, which is what you do in HGVs.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it with the camera can go, oh, there's something that looks possibly like a person, and highlight it on the screen for you, as opposed to the mirror, which relies you to actually look at it. I suppose so. I mean, The G-Wagon has been around for 1 million years.
Yeah,
in essentially the same format and the same height. I also think that I was reading a thing recently which was saying that the days of the mega pickup are essentially over here in the US. Do you see them, but the sales are way, way down?
Okay.
And that Ford Ranger size pickup trucks are becoming far, far more common. And that if there were more the same size as the Ford Maverick, which is smaller still, then those would be selling even better. The reason the Ford Maverick doesn't sell very well at all is because it's supply limited. They can't make enough of them.
Okay.
Sales of those monsters have peaked. They will always be around because there are always people who need to compensate.
Or actually need a work vehicle.
Or need a work vehicle, yes, exactly.
Because this is the other thing that gets forgotten about a lot of this, the screaming and the hullabaloo that goes on, is there are actual justified reasons of people needing these things.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least one person I follow on Twitter who uses one for work every day and uses it as a pickup truck every day for work and never uses it for personal use. And people go, oh, you're a world killer, etc., etc., etc. And he's like, well, what else do I do for work? I need a commercial vehicle. The transit van's not going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That kind of stuff annoys me because the situations illustrated are normally incorrect. The assumptions made are also normally incorrect. The examples chosen, cherry-picked, are also normally extreme, are normally outliers, etc., etc., etc. I just think it's a really debate, but I don't believe the world needs loads and loads of great big cars.
You can have both those opinions at once. It's amazing.
You can.
Isn't it?
It's amazing.
Anyway, do you want to take us to something that's you're a bit more happy about?
I think great big cars. Genesis had a bit of a sort of brand launch thing, the kind of stuff that previously would have been shown off at the Geneva Motor Show, but now isn't. The first one of those is the Genesis Neolun concept. It previews the next generation GV90 range topper, which will be based roughly on the same underpinnings as the very popular Kia EV9. but will be super luxurious. I mean, the first thing I noticed about this is the shape is SUV shaped. It is luxury SUV shaped. But then it's got those massive monoblock wheels, which just look great. It's got a graphic of the Genesis grille. We'll see whether or not that makes it to production or not. But it's very traditional, whilst at the same time having Andrew was going, well, it's a bit rounded and a little bit of the old, let's get an SUV and rub the corners off the soap bar type thing.
Mm.
And sure, it is a bit like that, but it's been done kind of tastefully. It's got a great stance, but what everybody's been talking about are really the interior. Oh, amongst other things, by the way, are the reverse opening rear doors, which supposedly is going to make it to production. I suppose that's one of the bits that is actually going to get through, which is going to be interesting because often when vehicles have doors like that, you have to open the front door to then open the rear door, and that's the thing. But there must be some kind of clever safety interlock, I'm sure.
Mm.
It also has swiveling front seats, electrically operated running boards, which, yeah, fair enough. And in the case of this concept, royal indigo coloured cashmere upholstery. Take that and stick it in your leather. That's far better. That's my kind of interior. Concept, obviously, so it's got real wood flooring and things which are never going to make it to production. But the other thing that people were talking about was the fact it has underfloor heating as well, and I can't find that in here. But it's a number of just really super luxury idea things. And I think that the fact that you can swivel the front seats within an SUV like this and then open up the entire side, I mean, that is the ultimate polo match tailgate experience. Kids Sports Day. It's one-upmanship, really, on there. I think it's pretty cool. I think you can see the family resemblance. I definitely don't think it's ugly. And you can kind of tell that Luc Donkervolk, who's Genesis chief creative officer, was perhaps designer at Bentley beforehand. I think it's really cool.
I'm not convinced by the screen would never make it to production because it's too big. I don't
think being too big. Wait. I don't think being too big is actually going to stop any manufacturer, any manufacturer bringing screens to production.
Well, this one, it's too tall. I don't care who you are, you're going to have to be incredibly tall to be able to see over the top of it, looking at the angle of it. I know it's a wide-angle shot. I know
that. But looking at it, it looks like it maybe sinks down to some kind of slot.
I think it has
a couple of different positions by the looks of that. And
because it's the Hyundai group, they'll have a good head-up display.
Yeah.
The driver won't need...
Yeah.
When it comes to reality, there will be some sort of screen or something there for people to interact with. But I love the rest of the interior. I think is
just pretty awesome.
That screams luxury, to be fair.
Subtle on the outside and then, wow, that's cool on the inside, which I think is the important part of this. Anyway, the other part of their announcement, Andrew.
Yes, they are also going to launch a performance brand called Magma. Sorry, you can only pronounce it like that.
No, it's got to be more of a Dr. Evil voice. Magma, yeah.
And they're going to start by bringing the GV60 as I was going to say breathed on, but it's not. It's more than that. It's much more enhanced. And talking of wheels, I love the wheels on the picture.
Not a modded version, I think.
Yes, I love the wheels on the picture that's in the article linked in the show notes. But they also revealed that there was other concepts. So there was for the GV, was it 80, which is the coupe SUV.
GV70. GV70.
It says GV80 down here.
Oh, okay. Oh, a GV80 coupe. Okay, so that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, the G80, which is the large saloon. And then there's an X-Grand Berlinetta concept, which is a two-seater sports car with a huge bonnet. By the looks of this picture.
I would be amazed if that's for production.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But obviously, they know a thing or two about performance with the N brand. So it'll be interesting how that works with the luxury brand. I am intrigued to know what they do that still keeps the luxuriness, but also the performance side of things.
I would imagine that given that lots of the engineering for this kind of stuff is based in Germany, there may be a couple of sort of AMG engineers who may well have been recruited.
And
that would not surprise me at all if it turned out that there was some former BMW and former Mercedes people involved, and maybe some former Audi people as well.
Yeah. Genesis are making a big splash.
A big splash in red-hot magma. There we go.
Yes.
Will Nissan manage, or will they burn up? Nissan is to launch 30 cars over the next few years as part of a revised business plan named the ARC. Now, that's ARC with a C, as in it's a curve, not that the Nissan executives went in 2 by 2 in order to survive a massive flood or disaster.
That they created themselves.
Not the best piece of naming, I think. 16 of these 30 will use electrified powertrains, while 60% of Nissan's current combustion engine cars will be refreshed. I think the 30 new cars is some new cars, plus some facelifts.
Yes. It seems to be stretching it somewhat.
According to Autocar, the Japanese firm is set to significantly ramp up its electrification efforts after 2026, so just far enough away that we'll probably have forgotten about this announcement. Launching an additional 20 hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and EVs. Lots of stuff coming. They're going to be slashing prices by developing families of EVs, which is a new one because everything seems to be separate so far.
This is ridiculous. What have they been doing? Well, we know the answer. They've been
fighting with
themselves
each other.
And Renault. But It's ridiculous that we get to now, 2024, and then they go, "Oh, actually, we're gonna have some family platforms because that might be a good idea." And then you look at other things like they're going to group source components to cut costs again. What on earth have you been doing?
So they were doing it with Renault, and then they fell out with Renault, so they have to go and do it all over again.
If I was an investor, I'd be furious with the board of directors.
Nissan press releases like this really, really annoy me because you think you had this.
Yeah.
And you decided to throw it all away. And then you spent 2 years fighting with each other and achieving what looks to the outside world like next to nothing. And now you're going, we're going to do
situation.
Much. And now we're going to go and do it all over again. And it's going to be this magic, great new announcement with a great name. It's a rotten name. And to be honest, it's an announcement of here's all the things that we should have been doing for years like anybody else.
Yeah.
Even frickin' Tesla can do this.
Just to round out the questionable nature of this announcement, they go on to talk about solid-state batteries are going to be in place in 2028. No, they're not, because it's always a couple of years away.
Yeah, again, it's far enough away that we'll have forgotten about this announcement when it doesn't happen. You annoy me, Nissan. You annoy me so much.
Yes, this shouldn't be the situation.
Just through stupidity.
Yeah. Right, well, I'm going to take us to Ford, and they're doing a U-turn on the agency model for their dealerships. So what they're doing now, because of the way that the market is going, they've realized perhaps holding all the stock themselves and being on the hook for all the cash is perhaps not the way they want to go moving forward. They also talk about how it's actually a lot more work than was previously anticipated, and that they will do it at some point, but just not yet. I think we will see anyone that was looking to go to agency is not going to now.
Yes.
Because of the exposure.
Mm-hmm. The flip side of that is they are going to downsize its dealer network to reflect its lower sales aspirations. But that's across the whole of Europe. That's not necessarily just the UK. But
yes.
One last thing, to round us off, Lamborghini has revealed a new logo for all future cars. It features a subtle restyling of the Raging Bull and a bespoke Lamborghini font to reflect the firm's brave and authentic values. More than any of that, it's now flat as opposed to 3D.
Yep.
It's essentially the same. Nobody will be able to tell the difference. Nobody cares. Let's move on to points of interest.
No, I think we do need to remind people because there was a lot of misunderstanding. Why are companies doing flat? It's so they can illuminate them on the front of cars or the back of cars. And everyone seems to have forgotten that. There was a lot of comments on social media that was all, it's not
it's
what
so
you think.
You can cut it out and you can shine light through it. Sorry, I assumed that Motoring Podcast listeners remembered that.
But we might have some new listeners.
No, we probably do.
From the last time we talked about it, because it's been a while since we talked about a new logo, actually.
Yes, hasn't that been nice?
Yes. Anyway, points of interest to try and cheer Alan up a little bit.
Nissan has annoyed me so much.
Yes, the lunchtime read is from The Drive, and it is titled Aston Martin's Piss-Off Factor is here to save us from touchscreen hell. And yes, we are actually having to bleep out a lot of language in this episode.
What I liked most of all was that this one, it was already in the list. And then at least one listener went, you should include this next week. Thank you.
Yes.
Listeners.
You know us very well.
It makes me laugh when people suggest stuff like this, which I've already added to the list.
But this is all about how Aston Martin are approaching technology in the cabin and whether to deploy it, whether to use it or not. And they've now got this sort of standard that they work to, involving how annoyed they are with it or not, which is good to see. Really is a very good article to have a little look at, especially as touchscreens are so much in the news at the moment.
I don't normally read the comments at the bottom of articles because it is, the bottom half of the internet. My favourite comment, this one, is a chap called Sets Chaos, and it says, if only I could vote for this with my wallet. Lots of very grown-up comments and responses to this one. All in favour.
Yep.
All in favour. List of the week this week is by Richard Dredge for Autocar. And this time, Richard has dredged up The Greatest Cars by Pininfarina. There are 37 in the slideshow, which even then sounds like hard work narrowing it down to that few.
Yes.
But within that, Andrew, do you have any particular favourites?
I've got many, but the one I'm going to pick, this was really hard, but the one I'm going to pick is the Fiat 130 Maremma from 1974, which is a 130 coupe that they've actually put a shooting brake on the back of.
Oh, right.
It looks glorious in the sort of bronzy brown. Next on the beach, as you do, and I just think it looks fabulous. There are so many here I could have picked. There's so many, very famous ones. Right? I tried to go for something a bit different this time. How about you? There must be something.
I did. I took a similar tack to you.
Okay.
Trying to avoid. I don't know. It was hard to slim it down. I went for the Peugeot 504. In particular, the convertible.
I nearly picked that.
There was a high chance that we were going to have accidentally picked the same one.
Yeah.
But I just think these are absolutely lovely. The whole 504 range is very attractive, but
yes,
the coupe and then especially the convertible are just gorgeously tasteful. You can imagine driving through the middle of Paris late in the evening with the roof down in one of those and just being, or just looking the coolest person around. Never mind. That's far more exquisite and rare than the sort of some of the fancier Playboy cars out there, or driving along the south of France. Just the right car in the right place at the right time.
It's not about hurrying. Everyone who's listened to the show for some time will know that I'm not a convertible car fan anyway, but that is just absolutely glorious.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great ones. Yeah. Even the Bentley Azure there.
Yes.
Again, sorry, my idea of automotive heaven is a slushy, automatic, large-engined convertible in the south of France. Okay, just to put this into perspective. I love hot hatches. I love all that kind of stuff. But in my dreams, it's a big convertible in the south of France.
Nice. Okay, well, now that we're feeling much more positive about things, I'm going to take us to the and finally. And this is actually in connection with the lunchtime read, so you need to read both of these. And it's from Drew Smith of the Looking Out podcast. And he's written in Car Design News about the NCAP rules that are changing that we discussed a week or two ago. I can't remember.
Yes, it was.
About how certain controls need to be via physical button, dials, switches, or stalks. And he comes at this from a slightly different angle. He talks about the feelings we get with interacting with things and comparing them to stabbing at a screen with your finger, and how it's different interaction and it evokes different emotions and feelings from you as you do this. So he actually sees this as an opportunity for car brands to bring stuff back. And we're not talking haptic switches either, by the way. Please don't do that. For car brands to grasp the nettle and go, actually, this is an opportunity for us to do something good and bring some joy and enjoyment to people using our products. Because when I got to the end of this, I thought, yeah, car brands, wouldn't you like to have people say this was lovely instead of us all just going, oh, for God's sake, it's another touchscreen where you've hidden stuff?
So there's a couple of things. One is, if you think about Rolls-Royce in particular, one of the things they've had for decades and decades, to make the air come out of an air vent, you don't twiddle a little knob bottom down, or you don't press a button on a thing. There is basically the organ stops, which you pull out or push in to vary the amount. And that's one of the things that they've kept all the way through. Just because it's a special, very Rolls-Royce interface. That was just an example I could think of off the top of my head that was a sort of little bit of a brand, not quite a brand differentiator, but you get the idea. It's a special Rolls-Royce thing.
Yeah. And I think he makes a very good point. And do go and read this, like I say, but read it after you've read the lunchtime read. And also, just as a quick aside, do watch / listen to the Looking Out podcast. It's on YouTube as well as on your favourite podcatcher.
Yep, it's a good listen. It does make us seem far less nerdy listening to it. Which is quite an achievement.
They do a great thing about discussing design, society, and other elements.
Yeah,
combining them. They're looking at it from a different angle than we are, which is lovely.
Holistic way of looking at just everything, because it's culture and all sorts of stuff too.
Yes,
really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's us for the week, isn't it?
Think so.
Nothing else I've missed. Good. Right.
No, I can't think of anything.
In which case, folks, it's that time when I remind you not to forget that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts of the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Please remember you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or however your podcast app lets you find such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is either search for Crack Windscreen on Twitter or Mastodon. You'll find me there. And I am also on LinkedIn as well under my name. And Alan, if people wish to discuss the dream of the south of France with a massively engined, lazy convertible with you, how do they do that personally?
Personally? You do it where Twitter, where I'm at AJP Bradley. I shouldn't have done that because you're going to leave that in. Where I'm at AJP Bradley, that's BRADLEY. Yeah, I'm also on Blue Sky as well. We'll be back very soon. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.